Turning a second home into profit. Here's your guide to smart real estate investing.
But they hear that you're making a ton of money when it comes to real estate. They want to do the same thing too.
Yeah.
What's your process? What's the approach when it comes to somebody looking to buy a second home, maybe turn that into an Airbnb? This is, the thing now. A lot of people are buying second home for Airbnb. What's the approach for somebody like that?
Well, okay. So first off, I would want to find out the main stuff, right? What's your budget? Okay. What location? Because there's certain people, some people you may come to me and say, Mike, I don't care if the property's in California as long as it's cash flowing. Other people say, hey, I want something closer to home. As a first time investor, I would recommend having something that's drivable within an hour, two max, just in case. As remember, your first investment purchase is going to be a bit of a learning experience unless, you have a partner that's done it a lot. So location, price. From there, I would say, I always tell people the Airbnb thing's a huge thing now, right? Everybody's talking about, oh, we'll buy an Airbnb. I'm much more conservative in terms of my advisement on investing is I say always underwrite the deal like it is an annual rental. So when you're purchasing a property, don't bet that you're going to have Airbnb income of X. Bet that you're going to be able to fill the property on an annual basis, account for vacancy. So if somebody moves out and you need to fix some stuff, whatever, usually 5%, 10% of the income, you account for vacancy. And then if you want to Airbnb it, great. It might be gravy on top, but underwrite the deal like it's an annual rental. Because worst case scenario, and here's where my bankruptcy expertise or experience comes into play. What's the first industry that tanks when the economy goes? Hospitality. What's hospitality? Airbnbs, hotels. Those are the ones that get squeezed first. Why? Because families and everyday Americans, they're not traveling as much. They're not going on vacations, right? They're going to stay home. What they're going to be worried about is food and providing a roof over their family's head, not going to Disney World or these things. So my point being is underwrite it like it's an annual rental. Worst case scenario, you put them in. Also, for first-time real estate investors, I always recommend targeting the, I would say, lower middle class to upper lower class kind of rental market. Why? Again, if the economy comes down or if the economy's hurting, people are going to tend to move down in terms of rentals as opposed to moving up. So if somebody that's renting a house for, say, $4,000 a month, economy's hurting, they're, struggling at work, what have you, they're going to maybe move down into a townhouse that's $3,000 a month, or a side of a duplex that's $2,000 a month. So those are things. And then lastly, very important, is something that has low fixed expenses. I'm not a huge fan of properties with high HOAs or a lot of restrictions. A few reasons for that is, number one, somebody's not living in there, you're out of pocket. Number two, the board can always change rules on rental restrictions. You can't have trucks. You can't do this. You can't do that. So they'll force you to change things like that. So those,
Especially in Florida.
especially in Florida. So that's like, I guess, my overview. It gets way deeper. And once I get to know somebody on a personal level and what they're, similar to you, right? Like being a wealth advisor, like somebody may be more adverse to risk. Somebody may be wanting to take more risk for a higher reward. So it really depends. But those, I would say, are like 4 pillars of what you should follow at getting started.
So basically, if I understand you correctly, before you make a recommendations, you usually take the time to understand what the goal is, what the client's goal is, what they're looking to accomplish budget-wise, location, and then you make, you can go ahead and make recommendations as far as what to do. Now, that sounds good, but how do they make money? So somebody, for example, somebody say, okay, well, sounds good, all these things, location, all these things I need to do, but what are some of the tips and advice would you give to somebody looking to buy real estate, commercial or residential?